We sort of sat on that couch literally 4,000 miles from where we sit today and said, what if we've built a company that allows us to travel all over the world together?
And like draw up a plan of how we're going to actually make it happen exactly the way we want it to. With Crystal, like doing Instagram has completely changed our business.
And that's the yin and the yang of Jason and I, is I look at everything sort of creatively. He's got another perspective of we need to really focus on the detail. And it's been really great to watch that happen with, Southern Craftsman Marine.
You're listening to the Rising Podcast, the podcast for sharing the stories, the lessons, and all the good stuff from legends in the marine industry. Welcome to another episode of the Rising Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to have Jason and Crystal Lucas on the podcast. They are the talented husband and wife team behind Southern Craftsman Marine. They specialize in fine marine carpentry. They've got a big following on Instagram, and they do teak fitting for sport fish yachts, which are all over some of the best sport fish yachts in the world at some of the best fishing destinations in the world. And you guys are based in Jupiter, Florida. I know you're a go-to choice for many custom builders and known for your excellence in craftsmanship. And fun fact, actually met Crystal on my last tour in the US with Short Marine team. She was privy to a few wild stories that normally stay on the cutting room floor. You got a little behind the scenes peek. So welcome, guys. Stoked to have you on.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I know you got a very interesting story, and what you do is super interesting. You work together now, the dynamic duo, the husband and wife team. Props to you for that. Maddie and I, my wife, tried to work together for a little bit, and we decided staying married was more important. So we nipped that pretty quickly. I know you guys always didn't work together. And take me back, like, Jason, how did it start for you? Like, where did your love for fishing, boating, and the ocean come in?
I always grew up on the water. I mean, going to the beach every weekend just to go surf or boogie board or whatever. My dad worked on headboats and stuff like that. So like, that's how I kind of got into fishing. And then from working on headboats, that transitioned to working on the docks. And then from working on the docks, I became a not commercial guy, but like we would do, live bait fishing here. So I started doing that. And then, one thing led to another. I met a guy, and that took me into the marine side of carpentry. My father was a carpenter, home carpenter. So I always worked with him weekends all the way through the summer doing it, doing home carpentry, and then transitioned into marine carpentry. I knew that I was always pretty, talented. I was always super tactile. I was always building stuff as a young kid, and then knew that I wanted to do something that was somewhat artistic, I guess you would say. I knew I wanted to be on the water. And then when I met this particular gentleman who now lives literally streets from us, he was working at Ricky Scarborough, building boats up in Manio, and then came down here and started a business. And he needed a set of hands to change a set of windows in a boat that I was actually working on part-time to take care of. And he's like, hey, I need your help. And I was like, cool, let's go to work. So that's, kind of how it spurred my interest. And it was cool because I didn't really grow up like doing sport fishing per se, because I was, I grew up around headboats. So, headboat fishing here, you're always fishing, you're always, every day, but you're not like going to all the cool destinations. So when I got the opportunity with him to start going to like custom boat shops, some of the first guys to put teak on Vikings at the Viking facility, aftermarket, I guess you would say, part of their facility. And we did a 55 Viking called the Double Shot for a captain named Jojo Jakimowski. And then from there, we left there and went to Manio, worked at Buddy Davis. This is when before they got bought by Egg Harbor, and they were building a 78 Davis. I think they built like 4 of them. They were on closed bridge boats. We worked for a captain named Johnny Buck, and it was a boat called the Whopper Stopper. And like during those times, like I was like totally into it because I'm walking around boat shops. Yeah. And like, this is so cool.
Like 20 years old, right?
19, I was 19 and I was just like, wow, this is really, really cool. Like being part of like something so big, I guess is kind of what was so neat about it. Going from doing cabinet kitchens to working on $1 million boats, you're like, this is cool.
Not a bad office as opposed to the like a development or production house. I think it's great sometimes too to find a new way that you can do what you love to do, like finding a different path or a niche. It's something that's super important. Then when you do find it, like I don't know many people that get into the marine industry that get out.
Yeah,
So,
no, and that's the thing is I mean, it is a cool industry. It's a really, really cool industry. You do meet really amazing people. There's times where it's like a high stress industry, but it's just kind of part of it. I always laugh and joke, like, we're not working on airplanes by any means, but you're working for the same clientele. So there is expectations. True. You're not building a Mako. You're building something, high end. So for me personally, and now Crystal, it's been pretty easy because honestly, my biggest issue has always been I'm my worst critic. I mean, I can tell you everything that's wrong with a project before I can tell you what's right with a project.
The discerning eye. But that's exactly the quality standard that people look for.
And that's my kind of hurdle. A lot of times is like trying to walk away from something is a challenge sometimes.
This one piece of grain on this board doesn't
that's
it's like off by a millimeter.
But it comes down to that. It comes down to like 10 minutes staring at something going, Crystal, do you think that this should look like this or like that? And I go, honestly, Jason, nobody is going to have any clue what you're talking about.
We were having a conversation about that actually about like 2 hours ago. So
Jason, we're kindred spirits, man. I did the same thing in video editing. It's like that. I can see a glitch and people are like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? It's like, but it's not perfect.
100%. The person who doesn't do it every day would never see it. But, the person who stares at it every single day.
Totally. And it holds yourself, I think, to a standard of excellence that is where you guys are positioned and what you want to be known for. You don't really get that if you don't have that attention to detail and care factor. So although it's a curse, it's also a blessing, I think. Crystal, we know what you guys do now, but where did you kind of start? I know you have a very interesting past. Some of it involves even the government and Everglades, and like it's this wild combo of everything that is beautiful that kind of brought you here. So take us back. Where did you start?
So Jason and I were both born and raised here in Florida, literally miles from each other. We kind of were ships passing in the night through our entire upbringing. We even worked in the Bahamas on the same dock during the BBC, which is like used to be the big Bahamas Billfish Championship. And we were both there the same summer, right when I graduated high school, and we never met. So in high school, I had an epiphany that I could be an entrepreneur and wash charter boats as they came in a bikini at like 16 years old and make like $75 a boat. And it would take me an hour and a half from, Tower down. And so as soon as I got a driver's license, where we all had dinner at Sailfish Marina, it's a huge charter dock. And I would show up every single day and be there waiting with a bucket and a bikini. I would wash as many boats as I could. That was my first exposure to sport fishing. I didn't grow up in a family that fished. I grew up actually competitively surfing, and my life revolved around the ocean in that manner.
Side note, that was where I worked. Like my first job was at Sailfish Marina, where I was the dock attendant. I was pumping fuel.
And I was pumping money.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was washing charter boats, and the day after I graduated high school, I left for the Bahamas as a stew on a sport fishing boat for a captain named Joey Drosy, who was a really tough captain. He's a charter captain who took charter customers to the Bahamas all summer. And so I convinced him I could cook, which I'm 41 now and still can't cook. And we literally made it to the Bahama Banks, and he realized I couldn't even make a tuna fish sandwich, and was so mad at me. And I feel really bad about that to this day, because I totally convinced him that I could cook and handle everything the whole summer. But I made it to the Bahamas, and Jason was there too, and we never met. And so I came home from the Bahamas and went to Costa Rica, went surfing for a while, ended up in California, came back from California, met Jason. We got married a year from the day we met. So we met May 1st and we got married the following May 1st.
When we first met, I was leaving to go to New England.
4 days after.
4 days later to work. It was when I had first started our first company, which was named Customizers. And I was leaving to go up there to work in Connecticut on a boat. And then I was going to Staten Island to work on a couple of boats.
You started in Staten Island,
yeah.
on
the cookie, which was owned by a gentleman named Sonny Falcone, who was an amazing individual. He had a boat before the 56 Viking, which was a 52 Viking. And Frank Buongiorno was the boat broker there in Staten Island. Frank hooked me up with Sonny, and Sonny was just a really, really cool guy. And so we went up and worked on his boat. We actually stayed on his boat, worked every day, and Crystal flew up. And
so that's a great story. I think it's so cool. Is I was 20 years old and was waiting tables at a high-end restaurant here, met Jason. We spent 4 days together, and he was like, okay, I'm sorry, I got to leave for the whole summer. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll be here when you get back. He called me, I think 2 days after he left and said, why don't you just quit your job and I'll buy you a ticket and you can fly up. And I said, okay, because, I'm 20 years old and I lived at home and kind of had no plans for anything. And so I did. I quit my job. I flew up the next day. And that was really sort of the beginning of Jason and Crystal. We met May 1st and we got engaged July 4th and we got married May 1st on the beach where I used to play when I was a little kid across the street from where I grew up. And we've been married now 21 years. And so working together has been kind of a natural evolution of our relationship, because when COVID hit, we were living in Oregon of all places, which is a whole nother story.
Good wood out there, though, which is good.
Yeah.
A lot of wood. I learned a lot about cutting timber because that's what I ultimately ended up doing when we were out there. That was one of the coolest experiences of my life, learning so much about forestry.
So in Oregon, during COVID, we were kind of like, okay, we're at a crossroads in our life. We had left. Jason had sold customizers to a kid named Jay Scott, JB, and we knew that there was still a market here for what Jason did. Jason's really unique, and now we're really unique, and that the craftsmanship is really a focus and details are a focus. And so our daughter was starting high school. She had the option here in Florida, if she got a 4.0, to go to college for free because of a program that we have here in Florida. We just said, you know what, we're in the middle of lockdown. Let's go back. And so we sold our house and we came back and started Southern Craftsman Marine. And when we were sitting there in Oregon, what seems like now so long ago, but about 5.5 years ago, we said, what if we go back and instead of me going and teaching, what if we work together? And what if we build this sort of dream of, let's spend the next 4 years learning how to run this company together. And then when our daughter goes off to high school, we can only do travel work and kind of go wherever we want and not be tied to one place. And traveling, something that's been near and dear to us. We traveled the whole country for 1.5 years.
Yeah.
And 2014, I ran for State House of Representatives, and we sort of made a deal with each other that if for some reason I lost, which it did not look like I was going to, and I had a trajectory that I wasn't going to, so I kind of felt safe making this deal. Jason could have a sabbatical. We could, leave the marine industry for a while and just go travel because our daughter was 10 and it was kind of perfect timing.
Like, one of our things that is coming to fruition now is when we were younger, one of the things that was super important to us was travel. And we were like, how awesome would it be, down the road when our daughters graduated, to where we can travel from place to place and work and go to some really awesome places and be together. That was the whole goal. So to have this happen now and working out the way it has with Crystal, doing Instagram, has completely changed our business 100%. I tell people, and I'm like, they don't even understand how much it's changed our business.
We sort of sat on that couch in Oregon, literally 4,000 miles from where we sit today, and said, what if we go back, put her in high school, by the time she's finished, we've built a company that allows us to travel all over the world together. And we do it together. Let's just focus on that. And it seems sort of pie in the sky because Jason had always done travel work, but it was almost like Jason and whoever was working with him would go, and then I would fly back and forth with a toddler. And, it was fun and it was nice, but it was basically Hannah and I spending all day doing something while he worked all day. And we weren't together. And I felt like I was on somebody else's work trip. And it's just sort of been amazing because the past 3 years, our business has evolved to be exactly what we sat on that couch and hoped for.
Yeah.
But beyond what you could even hope for. Yeah,
because really, it's wild. I kind of pinch myself a lot of times because to sit and think about something, 20 years ago and say, I'd like for this to happen, but not everything always works out. And then to
work really hard,
work really hard, right? Have those things happen. But then literally sit down 4 years ago and draw up a plan of how we're going to actually make it happen exactly the way we want it to, and everything work out like we want. It's wild.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing. Like we did a boat in Kona and it was fabulous to be in Kona, but we literally worked every single day for 2 weeks. And then, we do a lot of boats in Cabo San Lucas, which we absolutely love Cabo and the Cabo area. And it's a cool place to be, but it's a lot of work. So we're really excited for this next evolution where it's not like we're leaving a 16-year-old at home with a babysitter and rushing to work 14, 15-hour days to get back. It's going to evolve even farther into what we really hoped it would be, where she's off at college, becoming a young adult and really following her dreams. And we're getting to follow what our dream was, which was to be together, do what Jason's amazing at and what now I get to be a part of, and to build this business and see these places and offer our services to these people around the world. I mean, the clients that we're getting to work for are just amazing people.
Yeah. It is pretty wild because you were meeting people who were like
the top of their field.
Yeah.
And they're calling you because you're the top of yours. So
yeah. I mean, just the other day,
humbling.
I was looking at this gentleman who had called us, and I was looking at his Instagram and like he worked for Stuart Campbell, who like when I was like young, I'm in my 20s, I'm like, Stuart Campbell, they were fishing in the Azores and Madeira, catching 1,000-pounders, like I was blown away, watching that stuff. And now I'm like getting to work for those same people, which is, it's pretty cool to me.
It's wild, man. And there's so many things to unpack in that whole story. I think like, first of all, to be at a place that you are now, I think is super grateful. And the fact that you guys have that mindset of being thankful kind of where you've come from and where you are is really awesome. That quality to keeps people interested in wanting to work with you because you're real authentic people, right? You're not just doing it for the money, like you're doing it for the love.
No.
Obviously the money helps, but
I mean, there's nothing wrong with making money, but
but you're doing it for the right reasons. I think one of the two things I'd love to talk more about is the growth of the business through Instagram, because I think that's something that's super key. And, when Chris and I talked, I know like the evolution and the growth of the business due to that, and the way that you do things is awesome. And the other thing I think that's really cool is just envisioning the future, right? Sitting down and saying, this is a clear picture of what we want to do, and then focusing on that, because not everybody does that or believes in that. But like, I'm a big believer, I've got all my goals sitting next to me for the next, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And you look at that and you talk about it and you say it out loud and you write it down. And those are the things that become real because they're in front of you all the time. And, when you believe strongly in something and it has a deeper reason for you guys to achieve it. So you wanting to do it because you want to travel and do things you love and give that life to your daughter. Like that's super special and motivating for you guys probably. So congrats on that.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Everybody has days where, you're like, oh, damn, it's a long day, everybody has those days, but, at the end of the day, I always look back and I'm still blown away. I'm so grateful for where we're at as a couple, as a business and all of that, which is...
Yeah. So. We laugh about it because, we met so young. Jason was 24, 25, and I was 20. We just have conversation after conversation that can you even believe that 20-year-old and that 25-year-old who were, first of all, I don't want to say naive because it's worked out wonderfully, but so naive to just believe like, hey, quit your job and fly to New York City. And then he handed me a credit card, and like 20-year-old Crystal took the Staten Island ferry to New York City every day and just walked around until 5:00 when he would come and meet me and we'd go to dinner. And then to be where we are now, where we're working together and every single goal that we sort of dreamed about when we were in our early 20s is coming to fruition, and we're continuing to be able to make new goals and watch those come to fruition. Yeah. Like I can't imagine 60 or 70 is just going to be amazing because 20 through 45 has been fabulous. So I guess as far as intent, we both kind of grew up in unintentional environments. And so to have the control when we started our relationship together to be very intentional and then raise a child who's extremely intentional has just been amazing. And it's been really great to watch that happen with this new, Southern Craftsman Marine. What do we want this to look like? And what do we want this to intentionally look like in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, talk to me too then about the intention of you joining forces. And I think when we did talk at Sailfish Marina, you know, maybe you were met with a little bit of, why do I need to do this, be in front of the camera again?
I still get that daily.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I completely understand. I get both sides of things. But Krista, what was like your vision and intention for bringing video content in and social media, and then take me through that journey to where you started and where you are now, like things you thought about, your plan, what did you want to happen?
Every single video I make is intentional. So when I ran for State House of Representatives, I sort of got a crash course. I have a background in biology and education. I was never into marketing. I should have probably gone into marketing and sales.
Tell her right now, I was like, we're making good money now and we love what we do. I was like, if we want to make real money, we go start a marketing firm, because this woman is one of the most amazing marketing people I've ever met in my life.
And so I kind of looked at everything I learned during my campaign, which a political campaign is really nothing than a giant marketing campaign. I mean, all you have to do is look at the United States presidential elections. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but it's a multi-billion-dollar marketing giant. I kind of also looked at higher end brands. You know, what does Louis Vuitton do? What does Gucci do? What does Lamborghini do? What does Chanel do? And the clientele who buys those products are the same clientele who own the boats we work on. And so my strategy should be the same. And that is a high quality product that isn't disposable and isn't everybody has one, and also is extremely thought out and thorough. And that's kind of where I started with that Instagram. And so in the beginning, when Jason and I first started working together, he was like, will you put the camera down, please, and stop videoing? Like, we have stuff to do. And as videos started to lead to phone calls, he was like, oh, that's really weird. We're getting a lot of calls about this. And then the travel work started to come, and people were like, oh yeah, I'm in Hawaii, or I'm here, I'm there, I'm in Cabo, and our boat never goes anywhere. Can you come down? And so my business partner here, who has a minority share in the company, started to see that his marketing partner it was working.
Onto something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have hundreds of thousands of followers. I think we're at like 16 or 17,000. But what I took from my campaign is it was extremely targeted. My marketing is not for everybody. The reels that I make on Instagram are for two different categories. The first category is owners and crew who are actually the buying and the decision makers on these boats. And it sort of has turned out unintentionally. The second category of people who really follow us are people who do what we do or who work in the marine industry themselves, and then people who do fine carpentry and craftsmanship. And that even has become really intentional, because I'll try and put a boat up, or I'll try and put a video up that obviously markets towards the crew, and it's beautiful and it's sweeping shots and it's the deck when it's rinsed down, or it's the fact that we're using amazingly high quality products. And then I try and do videos that are more like, oh, you know, the craftsmanship, you should look at this, because I think that our target audience, which is the owners and the crew, appreciate both and see the difference in both. And so I think that's really what has led to our intentional success. And I have a really great partner now who will let me take video and who will let me stop what I'm doing and edit and put up a story.
It's like anything, right? Like, I was never a social media person. I mean, I never had a Facebook page. I never had any of that. And all of our business before
was word of mouth,
which was great. And we had a great reputation, and we did, a lot of work for manufacturers, and everything was word of mouth. You know, you'd be booked out, as far as you wanted or needed to be. And then when we came back, we said that we wanted to be a little bit more, it goes back to being intentional with who we wanted to work for and the jobs and the opportunities that we wanted to have. So, I mean, I didn't really necessarily know how it was going to work. I just figured you go back to doing word of mouth and you just keep spreading that. I mean, obviously, I knew that her experience with the campaign proved, that social media worked, right? But it was still kind of in its infancy. I mean, you see what people do today with social media, and it's wild.
I think, too, you guys have a very unique thing that people love, right? They love to see a transformation.
Yeah.
The before and after.
Mm-hmm.
They love to see behind the scenes, the process.
Yeah.
They like to see that visually pleasing, aesthetic, beautiful finished product.
You're talking about
And-
Jason in that part. He's the visually appealing.
He's not as selective with what you put up on Instagram then.
No.
No, I think that's fantastic though, because the work that you do and the industry that we're in, like those things paired with consistently putting them up and showing the work that you do. And it's another way, I think, to position yourself as these are the things that we care about. And so like all those details that you guys put up and the whole process and the unique ways that you do it is very, very interesting. And people want to see like how things are done, even if they don't own a boat, right? Like it's really interesting. So, and the more people that know about you, the better, especially they may know somebody with a boat, right? That's the beautiful thing about the network and not just relying on your, the word of mouth thing, which is huge in the industry. But if you were to give advice to other small businesses, maybe that are craftsmen or boat detailers in bikinis or or whatever they be, small business, like what would you say as far as one thing to be intentional about or think about that's worked for you guys in growing the business through social media?
Part of why we've grown the way we have is because of social media, but also because of the reputation that Jason's had in 25 years within the industry. I think social media has definitely helped in having people find out about us. But then Jason's just absolutely stellar reputation with customizers and now with Southern Craftsman Marine also helps because like, it's just like anything. You see a product on TikTok for sale, but if you have a friend who said, oh yeah, that product is really good, you're going to be really happy if you order it, you're going to hit that order button. And obviously we're not talking about $24 things. We're talking about things that cost, tens of thousands, but it's that same sort of mentality as somebody will say, because I've been told this by numerous people that, oh yeah, we were sitting in the salon and my mate saw your Instagram and showed it to me. And then somebody else who was in the salon was like, oh yeah, they did so-and-so's boat and it's absolutely beautiful. So it's sort of that double whammy of we have social media and our product is good as far as the social media side, but like there are no filters and what you see is what you get.
I think that's honestly what I would say, honestly, is the most important thing for me, being like so attention to detail, providing the product or service truly what you are selling. This industry has exploded. It's obviously much bigger than it ever was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 4 years ago. But there's a lot of times when people aren't necessarily genuine in what they can do or what they can provide. I think honesty, as far as like the time frames you can do things in, I would rather tell somebody longer and then be okay with that and be done early and be the hero. Because I mean, we deal with this a lot. And people telling people, oh yeah, I can do that project. No problem. I can do it in X amount of weeks. And for me, I look at it and I'm like, there's no way in hell. And you're like, you're just telling somebody that to get them in, get them started on something. Then the owner or, customer is upset. And for me, I always look at everything as I want a repeat customer. And in order to get a repeat customer, I have to do a really good job this time and the next time and the next time. And that's where I'm so OCD about like, okay, this product has to look amazing because I want this guy to come back to me.
Yeah. So it can't just look good in a 30-second reel. It has to look good for the next 20 years.
Right.
And that's the yin and the yang of Jason and I is I look at everything sort of like, oh, creatively, we can make this video or we can do that. And he's got another perspective of we need to really focus on the detail and we need to have it look good.
Yeah, I don't want it to look good just today. I don't want it to look good necessarily when I'm finished with it. I want it to look just as good 5 years down the road. That's like super important to us.
Which I think is anybody who's listening to this in Australia, the cookie that's out there, the Viking that he did literally when we first met 21 years ago is still sitting there with that same wood. We're just now redoing boats that Jason did at the very beginning of his career. And for me, he's kind of like nonchalant about it. But for me, I think that speaks volumes that somebody made an investment 21 years ago that just now is needing to be replaced because its lifespan is done, when there are people and builders and decks and covering boards in this industry that are 3 and 4, 5, 6 years after being put in have to be taken out because they're failing. And that difference isn't necessarily anything other than that attention to detail. All goes back to that word intentional. We joke that I need to get it tattooed on my arm because he's hyper intentional. Sometimes I tend to be like a little hummingbird. And so the yin and yang of everything sort of like.
That's why it all works.
And I think too, about your point, like there's no amount of marketing that's going to fix a bad product. So starting with the best that you can possibly give, marketing is a bonus at that stage, right? And I think too, talking about your expertise and those attention to details, Crystal, when we were at dinner, told me a very interesting story to me about your wood selection process and where you store it and that whole thing. Personally, because I love to like learn about things and stuff, I think it's awesome. Can you tell us how you find the teak and what you look for, and then your sheds, that kind of thing?
I always look for what's appealing to me. We don't just buy lumber because it necessarily fits, this measurement and this measurement. Yeah, we might need that. But if it doesn't look good to me, if I wouldn't put it on my own boat, I'm not putting it on anybody else's boat. I very much am, kind of goes back to like kind of the artsy side of it. Like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm an artist. We just did a tow rail for a gentleman, a handful of months ago. And like one of the most important things to me, like I wanted all the colors to be as close as we could because I wanted it to have like a real nice, even flow. Real nice uniform look. Today, I was at a supplier and we were going through some lumber and he's like, well, what are you looking for? And I was like, well, I'm, looking for vertical grain on edge. And he's like, oh, I got a bunch here. So, we went through, I don't know, probably went through maybe 100 pieces of lumber. I pulled out 6. I buy a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. Sometimes you find lumber that nobody else knows about sometimes. I mean, that just happened the other day. And the funny part about it was like we went to a supplier who I used to work with 10 years ago. And I used to buy a lot of material from them. And I was just kind of sitting around thinking about like, sources and stuff like that. And I was like, man, I wonder if they still have, a fair bit of that lumber that, they used to always order in. So I called down there like 6 months ago and was like, hey, do you guys still have lumber? He's like, oh, we haven't opened that bay up in 2-3 years. And
you were like, probably like the last person.
I'm like, really? I was like, you haven't opened that up? And this is like lumber that's rare. I mean, today, it's top shelf, as good as it gets. So we went down there and I'm pulling stuff out that had my handwriting on it that I had seen 10 years ago. So yeah, we went down and found a honey hole and
bought everything
they had because it's no secret that lumber is getting much more scarce.
Teak lumber,
teak lumber. And the teak that we're speaking about is Burmese teak primarily. There is teak grown all over the world, but specifically Burmese teak is the pinnacle of what you want to use in the marine industry because of the oil contents, where it's grown. It has nice, uniform coloring. It drying. All of our stuff's dried in kilns, and then a lot of it's air dried for years after that.
And so you guys are not buying per job, which is the unique thing too, right? So tell me about that mindset and the thought.
In 2020, so Burma and Myanmar, same place. They're in Asia. Burma had a governmental coup where the military took over the government and they put the then president in prison. And the United Nations all got together and said, okay, we're going to put sanctions on products that are in Burma that have not been cut down before this specific date. I'm pretty sure it's like April 2021. So
it had to be on the ground.
Had to be already cut down. Anything that was already cut down could be exported, but anything that was still standing could not be exported to the United States. I'm sure Australia is part of that, Europe. And the reason why was because the sanctions were put on so that the money wouldn't go towards the military. And we were sitting in Oregon and realized that this was all happening because we kind of obviously follow politics and international events really closely, which directly affects our industry in multiple ways. And we both said, well, we're going to go back and we're going to open this company. We need to take every single dollar that we can spare, everything in our personal savings, everything.
We sold our house and took all the profit from our house.
And went and bought wood.
And bought lumber.
And we were buying stuff and people were like, why are you guys buying so much?
We would have conversations with people and we'd be like, so you've heard what's going on, right? And they'd be like, yeah,
it's never going to run out. We have plenty.
The faucet's not going to close.
They'll figure it out before the time all this stuff is gone. And so we were like squirreling this away. Yeah. On my Instagram, I post videos of like how much wood we have. Now we're starting to get these phone calls where we might not have been the go-to first choice because of our cost or whatever, but we are the go-to choice for every phone call we get, whether they wanted us or not, because we're the ones that have all the wood because of that intentionality. 5 years ago going, man, internationally, this could go one of two ways. Like it could be short-lived and we could have bought all this and just be sitting on it, or it could really drag out and we could own all this lumber and it's not really about us making more money. That was never the intent. It wasn't sort of an investment in finances. It was an investment in this is what we need to work.
Yeah, it was an investment in the fact that if we don't have
quality material.
Yeah, the quality product that we wanted to get, you can't put out the product that you want if you don't have the raw material.
You can't be a fine quality chef if you don't start with good ingredients.
Right.
And so it was really vital to us and has continued to be vital to be intentional with our purchasing. I have had conversations in the past 2 years with people who were selling wood going, well, that stuff doesn't exist anymore and you got to just take whatever you can get. And even still to this day, we don't buy with that. I mean, it might come to that point one day. And Jason, because of the perfectionism and the professionalism that he has, says we'll leave the industry. Like there's just no reason to put subpar material.
That's a really powerful thing for you guys because you're looking after your job and making sure you do the best that you can, but also you're looking out for your customers that are positioned at the top that want the best, right? It was a really smart play.
And we end up with really funny scenarios. Like we got a phone call from somebody who is a friend of somebody who is a fraternity brother of another guy. And he was like, I'm building this custom build, but my builder says I don't need these covering boards, that he can just go ahead and get them in a couple years when I'm ready for them. And they're just sitting in this storage unit and I'm sick of paying the storage bill on it every month. And Jason was very honest with the guy.
Super honest with the guy. I was like,
are you sure?
I was like, I'm not telling you what to do, but you might want to take this lumber and just take it to the builder's facility and just stuff it in the rack somewhere. Like keep it. Like, I mean, I literally had like 3 conversations with the guy about it.
And the guy was like, no,
I don't want to.
No, like, I want to get rid of
this.
If
you want to sell it, I was like, I have no problem with buying it.
We drove to Alabama the next day.
Here in Stewart, a friend of mine who used to work at a pretty like top of the line builder, called me up and he's like, yeah, I'm getting ready to close my shop. I'm retiring. He's like, I got these boards up here. He goes, do you want them? And I'm like, what are they? So he calls me, tells me some measurements. I mean, this stuff is giant.
We drove there that night and picked them up.
He was like, do you want them? I'm like, yeah, why would I not? So you get a lot of random calls and it's kind of goes back to like, I'm not going into one place and we are not going into one place and buying anything per job. Honestly, like right now, and how it will get eventually is it'll kind of come down to this is the lumber that we have. And you're going to find a project for it just because there is certain things that like I have a very, very difficult time, taking very, very large lumber and cutting it up to fit small projects. I just won't do it.
To me, it sounds like your search for lumber is very synonymous with fishing.
It's it's literally the same thing. Yeah,
you're going to find the school, then you're going to pick a couple good ones out of the school.
Exactly the way it is.
That's awesome.
And you have dinner with somebody, and they randomly say, "Oh, I have these numbers. Maybe you should try this spot."
Yeah,
and they would never broadcast that they have this spot, but they know that you're a really professional, conscious angler or a responsible boat captain, and so they're willing to share what they have. It's been amazing for me to watch and wonderful as his wife to watch. His reputation has led to everything that we're experiencing today. His attention to detail, his professionalism, his honesty, his cool and calm, collected head all the time, his dedication to making sure that we're on schedule no matter what. Like all of those things have led to what I'm even able to put on Instagram. Like if he was a spaz and putting out a crap product, I wouldn't have anything to put. And it's been great. I'm learning something that I had no intention of ever learning when I was growing up or in college forever, that this would be something I wanted to do. And I'm not learning how to do it from anybody. I'm learning how to do it from maybe the hardest person to learn it from, but the very best.
From the master.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The work that you do is obviously great. And you hear that from a lot of clients, right? But you also get clients that are coming from a custom boat builder, maybe, and then you're finishing up with all the teak work when the boat's finished, or it's from a boat builder that there may have been a teak package already included, but they choose to go with you, which is super powerful. What's the reason that you hear the most for people deciding to spend the money and take the extra steps and get a product from you guys?
Custom boat builders build a great product, right? But you have to look at a custom boat build as it's a very holistic project. There's still a couple of builders who are very specialized in that everything is done in-house. I mean, everything. For me, we work right next to Rybovich today. Like the tip of the spear is a Rybovich. I'm a real, I love classic things. Like everything classic to me is cool. But I also appreciate everything that they do and how they do it. And everything's done with the most specific, eye to detail. And that's not saying that everybody else isn't doing that as well. Because, everybody else has the intention to do that.
Jason just has a bromance with Michael Rybovich is really what it is.
And yeah, we're working and there's boats that go by and I literally stop and I will sit there and just stare at them. I mean, there's a couple of boats that to me, if I had the money, I'd sell my house, I'd have a car, I'd have a truck, I'd have a dirt bike, and I'd have that boat. And that's it.
Rybovich.
There'd be nothing else I would need.
Yeah, just add crystal.
Crystal as well. Crystal as well. But yeah,
I'll wash the boat.
Yeah, she can be washing the boat. So, but I guess where I was going with it was some builders have also gotten to where stuff gets subbed out in order to build the best product that you can.
Yeah,
and that's been interesting. Kind of watching that evolve. Some builders have kind of realized that
it's advantageous. Some of the builders that we work with are amazing builders, but they've realized themselves that it's advantageous to bring somebody in who's very specialized. They're not trying to build a tower themselves.
No,
and that's what's so interesting is certain parts of the market, when you do a custom build, have always been outsourced. You've always brought in a tower company to put in the tower, and you would do the boat from hard top down yourself. And then you would bring in a company to do the tower because there's no way your guys could do the tower. And I think that a couple of things have changed over the past.
Faux painting is another thing.
They always bring somebody in. And so that's where, we work with some of these builders. I'm proud to say that we work with FNS, that we've done, the You Never Know, which is being built right now, will be our third FNS, and that it was a relationship that started because they saw that there was room for growth and improvement and speed. It's easier for us to come in and do a deck and have the skill and have the materials and have the knowledge and get it in and out and have it done in 2 weeks, whereas their guys might struggle a little bit. And then you have warranty issues, and then you have issues with this and that. And so by bringing us in, some of these custom builders have been able to relinquish control of that part of the project. And when we work with a custom builder, we appreciate the custom builder and we work with them on scheduling, but we work for the client. So the person who's building that boat is who we work for. We prefer it when the owner and the captain are the ones paying us at the end of the day, and they can work out what that looks like with the builder.
And there's a reason for that, not just during the build process. My reason for that is goes back to repeat customers. If that guy goes to another builder and builds a different boat, I want to work for that owner again.
So that relationship's important. It goes back to the cookie. The gentleman who's building the new cookie, who is Australian, had to search us out because it was just wood on a boat to him when he got it. And, some semi-production builders, that's what it is they put out a product, it has teak on it. You don't know who put that teak in. You don't know anything about that person. And so when Jason quit working for some of those semi-production companies, him and I had a talk, and it goes back to that marketing thing. It's more important to us that we build the relationship with the owner and with the captain, because no matter who that captain works for, he'll love us and he'll want us. And no matter who that owner works with or what he owns, he's going to want us. And so
this business changed a lot, I would say, from like 2010 to like 2020. The business of yachting, and it changed dramatically, in my opinion.
The programs.
Yeah, like how it changed. It literally changed 100%, because previous to that, you had a relationship with the owner. The owner called you, the captain called you. And then, all of a sudden it started to become more like the manufacturers are calling you and stuff like that. And it was great. I was very grateful. We had great relationships with manufacturers, but my problem with that was
you become a no-name.
You end up not knowing people who you're working for. And that was always my thing, that I always wanted to know who I was working for. And I wanted to have that relationship, because I want to go back to the boat that I put the teak in. I want to go back to that same boat 5 years from now and make sure everything's good. I want it, because it goes back to, I want it to look the same, down the road.
It's a very personal thing that you're doing as well, because it is someone's like baby, right? So you're building something that's super special for them. And even when we were in the US last with Muzz, and he was on a different 64 and we were on a sea trial, like, I don't know if he would have been as excited about looking at the teak on like the combing boards and stuff on that boat if he wasn't working with someone like you guys, right? So I think when you get an expert involved who's like top of the game, who gets you excited about, oh, this is another part of the boat that we really get to look forward to, and choosing those things and making and elevating the whole experience, I think it's an amazing thing. And maybe the boat builders now, that just trying to make it a bit easier for the clients so they don't have to meet all that stuff. But when you find the clients that care about that stuff, and you can get them excited because they know they're getting someone like you to help build their dream boat, like that's a really cool thing.
That's our clientele. Like that's who we want to work for. Just like how a discerning person will go and buy a Lamborghini. Yeah, obviously maybe there's some people who are like, oh, I want a Lamborghini. But then there's a lot of people who they like the craftsmanship in a Ferrari.
It's like the guy who goes and buys the Ferrari and paints it blue. Ferraris aren't allowed to be blue. There's certain colors, like Ferraris are only allowed to be like a couple of colors. And like, that's just the way it is. And like, that's the kind of individual who I like working for. I like to be able to say, well, yeah, those boards are book matched, both sideboards, that's the same piece of wood, and to be able to like look at it and say, it just goes back to the attention to detail. Like one of the coolest things for me is when I work for somebody who can like see it, and who can see like what my intention was to doing that. Like
as an artist, it's the appreciation.
Yeah, that's
right?
the coolest thing for me.
You get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you love showing them? Like you love going,
I do. And it is very cool, because it goes back to, I put so much thought into what I'm doing. I don't necessarily like need the praise, but I just want somebody to appreciate the effort that you put into it. I mean, I try to put everything, all my knowledge that we have, into building a better product.
Which is, I mean, it translates to anything. If you're a captain or you're a mate and you give your owner the best day fishing that they could have, you don't need them to come up and give you that attaboy necessarily, but you need them to recognize that they hired you for a reason and you have skill and you have value. And I think that that's what Jason really drives and thrives off of, somebody intentionally calling us, not just because we have the wood.
No.
And we do get phone calls like that where, oh, you guys have the wood, and so I want you to do the boat. And Jason and I's clientele is somebody who is like the person who's building the new cookie, who will search you out because that's something that matters to them, and becomes truly a friend. I mean, that's how I met you, Steve. I got invited to dinner by a client, and we have lots at this point. We have 4 years of clients and owners who have truly become friends, which to me is that, when we sat all that time ago and said, who do we want to work for?
Yeah, because I don't want to just work for them and then them write me a check and kind of down the road. Like I appreciate like being able to walk down the dock and, say hey to people, and people call you up just to
check on how you are.
Just to see what's going on. Like I appreciate the
relationship.
Yeah, the relationships that come with it.
I'm interested how this next chapter is going to work for you as far as the expansion into more travel, because from an outside perspective, you're traveling with quite a few things that aren't really meant to travel.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Because to me, it sounds like a very interesting, you must jump through some crazy hoops, even with like different countries and what you can import and export, like with wood and stuff, and all the tools. Like, how do you do that?
Oh man, are you ready for some good stories? So we have it wired right now. We haven't shipped to Australia, but I know that's probably your biggest audience. And I am personally looking forward to building a large clientele in Australia. So far, we've done Hawaii, California, Mexico, and those are all really easy and sort of, I say easy.
I mean, there's a lot
They're
of
straightforward
logistics that go into it. Yeah, but once you kind of like get the
project management part down. For the wood, we build giant coffins, so to speak. They're made out of plywood and 2x4s. We build the coffins and all the wood goes in it. And then we build a second coffin or box that all the consumables, all the material go in, all like their sandpaper, all your solvents, everything. And so we book a job. We know where it's going to be. We start making lists. I have spreadsheets. I'm sort of a spreadsheet nerd. And so I build all these spreadsheets, and Jason and I go out into the shop and figure out exactly what we need, down to like how many pieces of 80 grit sandpaper we should take.
Yeah.
It's really detailed, and that helps too with importing, is I can present to the customs a really detailed list, which helps with our freight forwarders. And, you know, I use a major carrier who gets it to one point, and then I use a secondary carrier that gets it across the border, a freight forwarder. And then we travel with all our tools. So here in the United States, we have a giant trailer.
Yeah, I mean, we travel with a lot of stuff. But, you know, you kind of get it down to
what you really need.
Yeah, what you really need. And then, you know, there's
versus
items.
the nice to haves.
Yeah,
could have that extra chisel.
Yeah, you know, you might not need it. You know what I mean? You kind of comes down to weight sometimes, but you'll have everything you need. And then, when
we get to customs, Jason walks ahead and I sit there with 8 gigantic totes. And I'm like, hi. I have all these things.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's the value? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm a girl. I don't know what this stuff is worth. And it works out perfect most of the time.
It does usually work out, yeah. we haven't had any issues so far. So, you know.
It's the secret.
Yeah, it's just kind of, you know, play dumb.
I just imagine you traveling with chop saws and stuff. Like, how does that even...
That's a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, take, for instance, like Cabo right now. We've done several jobs in Cabo now. So every time we've shipped stuff down there, kind of, we have like a mini shop in Cabo right now at this point, like not a facility, but like I have a mini shop of tools per se.
We have a boat yard that we've built a really good relationship with. We have deposits on boats that will happen sometime in 2025, and we've got tools down there, and it'll make it easier and easier each time. And our long-term goal is to sort of regionally travel, and Cabo will be one of those places, and we'll have a cache of tools there, and hopefully Australia will be a place, and we'll have a cache of tools there. And
you do buy, there is some larger items that it's just easier to buy. I mean, you know, table saw, you need a table saw, just buy a table saw there, you know, if you can't ship it.
Yeah, and I'm a planner. I love like project management and logistics and that sort of stuff, and so I don't mind it. I love travel work and the fact that I get to like really sort of plan everything and get it all ready and get it all perfect. There's a lot of behind the scenes.
There's a lot of time, hours that she spends doing it all. I mean, it really is kind of wild how much time she spends on it.
But all the prep makes the biggest difference in the world.
I mean,
knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. I mean, and obviously it'll happen one day, you know, where something doesn't.
Every time we sit at baggage claim and all the totes show up, we're like, yes, we did it. And we hide air tags in really inconspicuous places. And, you know, we try and do everything we can to prevent something from going wrong. And that's where that whole intentional planning, really trying to come up with everything comes from. And we've gotten the areas that we do travel work down to sort of a science, which has been really great. And we're working for great customers. So it comes back to, you know, there's one customer in Mexico that we've done 2 projects for at this point, and it's just a great relationship. You know, you're trusted and the reins aren't there. So you kind of just make the arrangements you need to make, and you show up with all your stuff and they're stoked.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most gratifying part, thinking about the last 5 years, looking at where you've come from and the things that you enjoy now? I'm interested to hear from both of you because I feel like you'd both be a little bit different.
I've always loved the work. And I mean, I love that now, like, me and Crystal work together. So for us moving forward, it's being able to kind of have the ability to work together and not really have constraints on things. And we enjoy what we do. So it kind of goes back to, I kind of pinch myself sometimes because it just kind of all worked out. I never thought it would all work out kind of the way it has. You hope for the best and plan for the worst, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and mine would be the same thing. During COVID, we both were sitting there and we had been stuck together for, however many months. And then same thing when we traveled the country and it was just him and me and our daughter literally in the back of a F-350 truck. And our happiest times are together. And so even though I have, a master's degree, and even though I could go work somewhere else and have had multiple opportunities to go work somewhere else, I don't want to work. I mean, I spent today scraping bedding compound off of river rail under the rub rail. And I'm probably like the most educated person scraping bedding compound today. But I love it just because we get to be together. Like we had breakfast together and then we had lunch together and then we get to like come home and work in the shop together. And so for me, it is kind of stupid and I feel sometimes so silly about it, but it's like, I don't care what we're doing. If you want to go work on boats, I'll come work on boats as long as we get to be together. And instead of it being like, oh, I'll go wherever you want to go, it's like, oh, I'll go wherever you want to go. And where you want to go just happens to be exactly where I want to be in an industry that I love. And I get to do the people stuff, which I really love. Yeah. I get to deal with people and it's awesome because when people come up to the boat, Jason doesn't really want to stop and talk. He wants to work and he loves to work and he doesn't really like to be interrupted and he doesn't really like to sit and chit chat.
I'm not a chatter, whereas Crystal's like,
oh, I'll chat all day.
She'll talk your ear off.
We all have our happy place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it works out really perfect because we get to sort of be the yin and the yang. And then occasionally I get issues where like a boat captain is whatever or an owner is whatever. And I get to go, hey, Jason, a man needs to deal with this. Can you make this phone call? And so if you're hearing from Jason, no.
Yeah, it's serious. Do you guys have a boat of your own?
Yeah, we have
a flotilla.
We have two currently. We have a 15-foot skiff and then 22 Parker. So.
And like a million surfboards. And
we have a lot of water-related accoutrements.
I was curious if you had one and it had any teak on it, or was it like the cobbler's child where like it gets
yeah,
no
no,
shoes?
Honestly, like my thing right now is I've had all of the plans for several boats to build a couple wood boats. It just comes back to like having the time to do it.
We've sort of spent the last 4 years unintentionally and intentionally
really working really, really hard to kind of build to the point that we're at now.
Every single day.
Because our daughter's in high school still. So like we're going to be here and working hard and coming soon. I want to build a couple boats. I have some plans for some different boats and I want to do some lofting and stuff like that just because that's genuinely like what I can't wait to, be building the boats that you're, go out on the water on. Like, that's cool to me.
He would go work at Rybovich tomorrow as a carpenter. If I would say, oh, you know what, let's not worry about paying the bills.
100%. If she had the marketing firm that I keep telling her to have, I would go work for Michael tomorrow.
Let this be the catalyst. Except, Jason, you'd have to do some work and not just be staring in awe, right? As they go past.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just sit there every day and I'm like, you're building something that's like, I love building things that you can use.
And it's generational.
Really cool to me.
Yeah.
It's fantastic to find the thing that you just absolutely love to do, whether you're getting paid to do it or not. Like, it just lights you up, and to get paid to do it and build a business around it is a massive bonus, I think. It's where success lies, I think, and starts from. Is it's been in your blood for a long time. It sounds like both of you are doing something fantastic, and I'm stoked for what the next 4 or 5 years looks like for you guys. A bit more traveling and some exciting projects, sounds like.
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to be fun.
I've got some rapid fire questions for you. The first thing quickly that comes to your head in a few words.
Okay.
What's your favorite type of wood apart from teak, and why?
Honestly, I love walnut. I don't really have any necessarily like reason. I think it's a beautiful wood. I've gotten into like antique guns lately. I'd love to own a lot of them, but I love looking at them. So like right now, like my current obsession is like just beautiful walnut gun stocks and everything antique guns.
The theme is things he can't afford.
Yeah. I would be lethal if I had several $1,000,000.
We know it would be in your room and on your dock.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Crystal, what's the favorite project or yacht you've ever worked on?
The old snafu was the very first one Jason and I ever did together, which was really special to me. And then we got to do the new build FNS for the snafu, and it's just beautiful. The boat's beautiful. The owner's wonderful. The captain's amazing. Yeah. And the boat came out perfect.
Yeah.
It's kind of like fine dining where the meal's delicious, the service is wonderful, and the ambiance is great. You know, I love it when we have projects where it's just, so I would say that one would be top.
Jason, what's your favorite tool in the whole shop?
Probably a hand plane. I love hand planes.
Or Japanese.
I thought you might say that.
Yeah, I love hand planes and Japanese sauce. Yeah.
That comes with the fine craftsmanship. Crystal, what's your favorite tool?
Actually, a sharp chisel. Like I have gotten.
She appreciates the sharp chisel. She would always go pick up the dullest thing, and I'd be like, Crystal, I'm like, a sharp tool is a good tool.
Yeah.
Sharp tool is a safe tool.
Yeah, yesterday I got to chisel off 2 steps into the salon. It's one of the tools that I can see the growth that I've been able to have in 4 years, because I remember at the beginning it was sort of out of control. And Jason was like, I'd appreciate it if you didn't hold it like that and do that with it. And now, like yesterday, I was able to, you know, chisel off those steps that we're getting ready to put new teak on. And it's deliberate. I was not a very deliberate person when we started this.
What's your favorite destination that you've worked in?
Los Cabos is cool because the marina right there it's right next to the boatyard. I walk across the street, have a great lunch.
Amazing lunch.
And then I can walk, you know, or I can bring my lunch and I can go up and literally sit at the breakwater and watch the whales jumping for lunch with my wife. And then after work, I can literally in 15 minutes, I can drive out to the East Cape and go have amazing ceviche and a beer. So like, what's wrong with that?
What else do you need?
I don't
you living there?
Crystal,
it sounded like you were echoing the same destination. Is that right?
Yeah. Los Cabos is somewhere that we love and we look forward to working a lot. I really look forward to all the places that we're going to get to go as soon as we're not rushing our daughter out the door by any means. Actually, if anything, she starts school next week. We haven't talked to her. She's been backpacking and sea kayaking for 31 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
It's been an experience for us too, not talking to her. So.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about all the places that we have the possibility of going. It's really random, but United Arab Emirates, like I have no reason why specifically that has been a goal of mine. But when we go do a boat there, I'm going to be so excited because I've just been like, how random will it be when like this husband-wife duo from Jupiter get to go to that place, which is so environmentally created. I mean, it's not a natural environment at all. It's a marina that is full of boats on a palm tree island. But that's like how far-fetched this whole dream has been. So if you're in Dubai and you're listening to this, hit me up.
Put it out there. That's where it happens. What's the most unique request from a client that you've had?
I built a really expensive garbage can one time, like a very, very expensive garbage can. Yeah, this one customer who we have is a great guy. And he's like, yeah, you think we can build this? And I'm like, we can build it. I mean, I'll build anything you want. It's just going to take time. Yeah, stuff like that.
He's got a boat full of things that he invented that Jason brought to life.
Yeah, he's just like, hey, you think we can make this? I'm like, sure, we can make it.
The testing grounds.
You think it up and we try and make it.
What's your favorite fish to catch?
I love catching roosterfish down in Central America on saltwater. Yeah, topwater. But I think in general, like all around, I love trout fishing because I love the mountains. Usually we're going to like alpine lakes. So I
was going to say you get more of a natural experience doing trout fishing.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
How about you, Crystal? What's a favorite fish to catch?
I would say anything topwater. We have a place down in Costa Rica that we love to go, and it's just so fun to topwater fish and to watch the bite and everything like that. And Los Cabos, I caught a marlin. and made Jason reel it in after like 45 minutes. I was like, this is horrible. We were on a panga because Jason and I work on $1 million boats, but fish on boats that are $10,000, which is fine. I don't care. But he like would never back down on the fish. So we were like dead boat fishing this marlin. And I was like, forget this. I'm not doing this. Like no chair, the rod butts in my side. I was like, this is torture. This is not the experience I want. So
when we were over in America and we met with Pat Healy at the Viking factory, and I remember he was like, when he gets onto a sailfish or something, he's like, back down, boys, drive it like you stole it.
Yeah, this guy was the opposite.
Yeah, no, it was completely opposite of that.
One last one. What's like a fun fact most people don't know about teak?
That you should have your deck professionally sanded once a year in order to make it last longer.
Yeah, the annual or, every 16 months or whatever that is it's better to have a light maintenance program than letting it go for a long duration of time, because all wood has soft and hard grain. And what happens is the decks or the wood or any kind of whatever surface that you have that's outside in the elements, that soft grain goes away. It gets extremely wavy. And then a lot of times you have to sand so much to get it back to looking good, what we would consider, to an appropriate level. It is better to do more annual or biannual than waiting 4 years. And
the other important term in that isn't really a benefit to us because we don't have time for sandings right now, but professional.
Yeah,
because,
that's a big thing. I would say that's a huge
and your
thing.
Detail crew is not probably who you should have sanding your teak.
And that's nothing against the guys who are doing it. They're just doing the best job that they can, but a lot of times they might not necessarily have the right equipment, I guess you would say. Using a 4-inch doodle pad, jitterbug sander to sand your covering boards or your deck isn't really the best thing.
Words to live by. I like it. Keep it looking like it is now in 5-10 years, right? So you can come and visit.
That way I don't have to hear it.
Yeah.
It's been such a pleasure chatting to you guys. How would you like to leave us today?
First of all, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
It truly is something that we appreciate. And it's just important to me, and I think to us, that we continue to build this company. It will always just be him and I, so we can't make more time. But we can definitely book what limited time we do have with people who understand what we're looking for, and then we can offer what they're looking for. It's that symbiosis. So I guess that would be my final thought is, if you're looking for that sort of symbiosis, then that's what we have. And I think what our long-term offer is.
Yeah.
And if you're in Australia or Dubai, get in touch ASAP.
Yeah, I want to fish the ribbon reefs that Kleiny told me all about. So I'm ready.
Oh, yeah. We're going up a couple times this year.
Oh, man, I'm really jealous.
She's definitely ready for that.
Yeah. Well, you won't be spending 45 minutes on the rod. I can tell you that much, with Kleiny at the helm backing down. That is for sure. No pongas up on the reef. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you.
Anyone out there that wants to follow you guys and check your work out, it's amazing. Southern Craftsman Marine. Check them out on Instagram. Your story is awesome. If anyone out there knows of great people like Crystal and Jason, have an amazing story, I'd love to share more stories from people like these guys in the marine industry. So send them my way. Thank you guys again, and catch you on the next episode of the Rising Tidecast.